On this episode of Dumb Pitches, my guest is Grant Lyon, and some of the worst sketch ideas I've ever heard. And what do you know? He did them with the Groundlings, one of the most famous sketch places in the world. Then we move on to GoPro comedy, but from the point of view of the comedian. So you never see the comedian. Are these good ideas? Are these bad ideas? I don't know. We'll see. Shout out to Bebop Waffle Shop and the Third Wheel Podcast Studio. Here we go. Dumb Pitches.
What a bunch of dumb pitches. Oh my goodness.
Welcome to another episode of Dumb Pitches. I'm Monica Nevi, your host. This episode is brought to you by Bebop Waffle Shop, located in West Seattle, Washington. They do classic brunch, famous for their waffle sandwiches. They also have some sweet swag online because it's based on a dog named Bebop. So we got some stickers, this sweet sweatshirt, awesome stuff. Check them out, bebopwaffleshop.com. All right, I'm excited for your guest today. Grant Lyon, here he is.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Full applause breaks every time in here. I appreciate
also,
it.
I love the name Dumb Pitches.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, no one's told me that yet, so good.
Really? No, when you first said it, I was like, oh, that's a really good name. Yeah, good job.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to have you on. We've been friends, worked together quite a bit as stand-up comedians over the years, but what I love about you and your just creative style is you do a lot of different things. Great stand-up comedian, but plenty of other good ideas, different categories is what we call them, good ideas, which I'm going to go over first because I want to make sure people know that you've had good ideas.
I'm not just cranking out the BS.
That's why we picked you. There's only bad ideas. No, you do acting. You are one of the main characters in a film called Killer Kate. Sketches. You've been on Funny or Die, Huffington Post, also a contributing writer for Huffington Post. You wrote and starred in a short film called Interview Date, which was eligible for a Short Film Academy Award. You've been in a lot of commercials, especially lately. In fact, I think the last time I had you on a podcast, you were getting called back for a Sam Adams commercial. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Which I booked.
Yes,
that's
there
right.
You go. And I was so excited when I saw it.
Back for.
There you go. And then, obviously, a great stand-up comedian. You've done Just for Laughs, a winner of the Laughing Skull competition, and an album that came out last year called Scheduled Fun Time.
Yeah, that's true.
So, plenty of good ideas.
Yes, I get bored easily. I have to stay productive.
Well, and then
I'm like a shark. I got to keep moving.
Yeah. Or you fall asleep.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite things, you're a big board game fan, but you also created a board game that you can purchase. That's called Curmudgeon.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I will say, obviously stand-up is my first love. That's how I started in the entertainment business, and I will always be a stand-up comedian no matter what else I'm doing. But there is something very satisfying about seeing your name on a product, like a board game sitting on a shelf, and you're like, hey, that's me right there. Awesome. That's my name on it. I don't know. It feels cool.
That's great. I mean, I've not experienced that unless I'm, selling a T-shirt after a show. But
yeah,
that's awesome. Especially because I know from just the process of you making that board game, like it took a long time before it actually gets to that point of you seeing it on the shelf and saying your name.
Yeah, it was about 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years of working on it.
There's a lot of. I mean, at some point, it could have been a bad idea. People play it.
Oh,
and
I was convinced it was a bad idea. Because. I designed it with one other guy, and we do a lot of meeting and talking and designing, but it's all theory until you get it in front of people and actually see people play it. Because, with just the two of us, we can't really pretend play it. We're just talking about how it could work.
Oh, right,
yeah. And the first time where we brought 6 of my friends over to try it, I left that playtest session being like, oh no, we wasted our time.
No, what have we been doing?
Yeah, this is horrible. I thought, I was like, man, this is garbage. Like this, And the guy that I was working on it with was like, no, this is how it always goes. Like, we figured out a bunch of stuff that didn't work, and now we will narrow it down to what does work.
Make changes. Yeah, that makes sense. An inspiration from our show. Some of these bad ideas could maybe change, make some changes. It could be a good idea. All right. So speaking of that, you got it.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I think there's those ideas that are just bad where there's nothing redeeming about them, and then there's ideas that don't work where you're like, okay, there was a kernel there. We do this with like new jokes where you're like, okay, that joke ate it, but that one part got some chuckles.
Right.
So maybe there's something there. There's something I can like glam onto, right?
Right. Okay. All right. So what did you think of when I first asked you what are some bad ideas that you got? You're bringing to the table here.
Yeah, I definitely have had a bunch of them because I am somebody that likes to crank out, stuff. And like you said, I'm interested in a lot of different things. So a good example of some bad ideas, which was partly because of just the rate of having to produce stuff, was I studied with the Groundlings here in Los Angeles. And for anybody that doesn't know, they're one of like the premier sketch comedy troupes. People like Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, all of these people have kind of like come through the Groundlings. And in their top level, it's kind of a cutthroat system where you have to get promoted and promoted and promoted.
Oh,
so I got up to the top level of their, training system or whatever. And you have to just every week, you're like putting up sketches every week. I mean, you got to like memorize and perform and just get them, like you're just cranking out. So in 3 months of doing that, I put 50 sketches on the stage.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's just a statistic there that like they're not all going to be great.
So I would say like 20 of them were real good.
Okay. That's pretty good though, honestly.
And then another 10 of them were like, okay, this is pretty good. Like, there's something here.
Right.
It's not
see
there
what you
yet,
were trying
but there's
to do.
something pretty good. And then there are 10 that were like bad. And then like 10 that you were like, why would you do this? Why would you subject anybody to this?
And okay, so you're doing them on stage, so you're getting like what 10 those are, right? Like
I know which one's bomb for sure. And sometimes like in the middle of it, when it's bombing, you're going, man, why did I think this was funny?
I feel like the thought is like, oh, we have to finish this still. Shit.
Yeah, there was clearly something about this concept that made me laugh, and I took the time to write it, and I don't know why now, halfway through this sketch. Like, I'll give you a couple of them. One, I wrote this sketch about apple farmers because I thought it was so funny that for some reason I thought it was so funny that there are so many different types of apples in like a grocery store. And so what if it was like these two sort of Bubba Gump type of people, Bubba Gump's talking about shrimp. Well, what if it was just these two guys talking about a bunch of apples?
Oh, just like Honeycrisp, Gala, like just
Yep, and just like comparing apples that they're growing and talking about which apples are the best and which are not. And then, that sketch got no laughs.
Okay, that was it, though. Sorry, I was like, there was more to that. No, they were just talking.
They were talking about apples.
Kind of a parody of the Forrest Gump situation.
Yeah,
but...
it was kind of supposed to be that. It just, there was nothing, right? Like, comedy comes in, like, the turn and the twist, and, like, that one had none of it at all. It was just like, oh, this is just going to be 4 minutes of guys talking about apples. Okay. Just 4 minutes of guys talking about apples.
I learned a lot, but I didn't.
Yeah. The one, oh man, I had like a lot of bad ones. I had one about these guys that were trying to be like, have you ever, what like a mud run is? Well, they have these things called zombie mud runs. And where it's like a mud run, but there are zombies on the course trying to
like chase you and stuff.
Yeah, and so it's just like this fun added element to a mud run. And I wrote a sketch about, like, now that I think back on it, I'm like, the sketch could have been funny if it was actually somebody on the mud run doing something, but instead I wrote a sketch about people training to be the zombies on the mud run, and one guy just like being super particular about how you portray zombies.
Oh, I see. So it's the whole like fast versus slow zombie thing.
Yeah,
Of, like...
and it just this one guy was just like, no, this is how you be a zombie, and just, and it's just like it's kind of boring because it's just this guy complaining about how other people are being zombies. But the one sketch that I had that bombed the hardest, the sketch that I had that bombed the hardest is, it's like almost like offensive when I think about it.
Perfect.
It was like people brought Jesus back to life. They found these like ancient rune stones and they actually brought Jesus back to life. But Jesus was Jewish, and so the whole sketch was just about Jesus being like a Woody Allen stereotype.
Just like a stereotypical Jewish person.
Yeah, just like super over the top stereotype where someone's like, please kiss my baby and bless him, but he's like, oh, I don't want a kid touch your baby. Can I blow him a kiss? I'll just blow, And everybody's like, God, this Jesus kind of sucks. And they're like, lay hands on the unclean and clean them. And he's like, does anybody have any hand sanitizer?
I like that the germaphobe thing was the one that you leaned into too. Like,
yeah, I
kind of feel like the idea of Jesus coming back and being something that you wouldn't, have thought of. I mean, obviously we know him as Jewish, but people, whatever. I've heard jokes of people being like, what if he's Chinese? What if he, all these things. So that's not like the premise, I think, there of the three you just told us about might have been your best, but
really?
But maybe the execution
is the one people hated the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is more divisive, maybe, or potentially offensive, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But that's the thing, you're cranking out so much, so I'm like, I got this kernel of an idea.
We gotta go with it.
Yeah. We're going. Yeah.
Okay, so in these situations, you're performing like, okay, so for the Jesus sketch, what's happening with the audience? Is it silent? Is it people being like, oh?
So the best part of it, and one of the things why the stakes are a little bit lower, so you're not putting them up initially in front of like a paying audience or any of that sort of stuff. Right. You're just putting them up in front of like other groundlings students,
which
is also can be even more brutal because these are people that are like judging what you've
written. Well, and it's like less. Yeah, it's like for comedy competition TV shows when they're like, first you got to audition for 3 judges, and you're like, cool, that's fun.
Yeah, so that's essentially what you're doing, and then the best of your sketches make the shows for the like paying audience.
Okay, well, good, because that does make it just like a bad idea that you didn't have to do it in front of everyone.
That doesn't live anywhere.
Right, that's good.
Except for now.
We know that one time Grant wrote a sketch that was a little off color.
Yeah.
No.
Totally.
I was thinking, well, so when I was in LA, I used to go and do stand-up in between improv groups like a lot because they would ask you to, but also if no one came to see that show, it was still a great audience. Like improv.
I know. They're so much more
they're
supportive.
so nice and like they're just like so excited. I remember 2 times I did a set and then at the end they were like, "Hey, would you come back up and do more?" And I was like, "Sure." Like,
yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
I know. I've done that too where you're like when stand-ups are watching you, they're like, even if you're doing great, stand-ups are like, man, why didn't I think of that show?
Right. Yeah, even if it's good, you're like, oh, I can't. Well, and then my head starts going down that premise, and I'm like, I can't do that. You just did that joke. Like, But yeah, they're very supportive.
It's true. I remember, so in the Groundlings, because it's sketch, but, sketch is still more supportive than stand-up is.
For sure,
and so I remember, like, before one of my first like public shows with the Groundlings, like other people coming around and going, "Hey, I got your back," which I guess is like an improv thing of like before the show starts, people are like coming up and patting you on the back and being like, "I got your back." And my like first reaction was be like, "What?
Yeah,
Get out of here!"
Why?
Like,
What are you trying to say?
I'm fine. I'll be fine. You handle your own stuff. You handle you. I'll handle. Don't mess up, and I'll be okay.
Don't touch me.
I don't need.
Yeah. Why don't you worry about yourself, sir? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they did that. I get it. Kind of. I don't know. I played basketball my whole life. Oh, I remember you played soccer. Like we never did that to each other before games.
No.
You know? I mean, it was. You knew that, but still.
I grew to really appreciate and enjoy it. Stand-up is so solitary. The team. I miss that team aspect.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Yeah.
And so this was like an aspect where like that was my first reaction to be like, don't get my back, get out of here. I don't need this.
I got my own back.
But then the more and more I was in there and the more I was working with these people, I was like, man, I really like this. Yeah, I got your back. I'm on board now.
They changed you around. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh,
they thawed my bitter heart.
Your bitter stand-up heart. They fixed it for you. Okay, and then, all right. We do like a call to the audience. Like if you if you would have wanted to watch. I mean, I'm pretty stuck on the Jesus one, but any of the three, it's funny because like what would happen at the end of the Apple one? I don't know, but.
Boy, I don't even. That was one where halfway through that sketch, I was like, "What did I think was funny about
that?" That is, but you're 2 minutes in, and you're like, "We got 2 more minutes of this."
Yeah.
If you would have enjoyed, do you think these are good sketch ideas? Is basically what it is. Maybe Grant. You maybe have some extra time now. I don't know what you're up to. You just film one, put it up on YouTube, see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And then before we had talked about another idea that you had.
Yes.
That I thought was I kind of get where you're coming from on this. Because especially when you're on the road all the time, you're thinking of these ideas of like, okay, what else could I put up that's not just my stand-up? That would be like something about comedy or something about the experience. So you had this idea.
For sure. Well, I'm like a weirdo in the sense that one of my favorite things to do at comedy clubs is to stand towards the front and then just watch the audience watching the comedians.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know why, because, I never, ever went to comedy shows before I was a comedian.
I didn't either,
because I started when I was like 20 years old and that sort of stuff. So I've never experienced a show the way an audience experiences the show, that they're just having fun and they're hitting the person next to them being like, like it's
yeah.
And so I just like watching the people watch the comedians. And so I think that's what spawned this idea of, you have an entirely different experience of a show than I have. Maybe I can give you an insight into my experience of a show.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah, so that's what I mean. I don't think it started as the worst idea. But so I don't know how else I would have accomplished this, but I literally attached a GoPro to my hat and then went and performed with a camera on my hat. So I was just like, doing jokes and talking. I was like trying to do crowd work and talk to people.
And everyone's just like, okay, we're supposed to pretend that's not on your head right now.
Yeah.
I like that too. So I love, especially lately, because I've been doing like weird private shows and stuff. I like watching the audience. That's fun for me from when I'm performing. Like they're just, I laugh a lot while I'm on stage, and I'm afraid it comes across as me like just thinking my jokes are still hilarious, but it's me seeing them and like laughing at, you're right, the reactions of being like, I made a joke infectious. And then you hit your friend and now we all know that they did that, kind of like, it's just a fun time. And so I understand the premise of wanting to, I guess, show them what we get to see. I don't know, but all I can see is you just having this. And unfortunately, I'm imagining like one of those like snowboard helmets with the thing on it.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the problem of it was the footage isn't what we see, right? Because it's not how our eyeballs work. The footage is bad because the lights are shining into it and people are like in the dark kind of.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just not compelling. And I still was like, I've been I probably filmed 10 different shows like that. Like I did a bunch. Like it wasn't just one show.
I like that you didn't give up on it either. You're like, no, this is good. I'm gonna keep doing this.
And I did it like in multiple different cities and in multiple different, like I did one in San Francisco on the Punchline stage. I did it, and I did it in like a bar in Detroit, and I did it, at like a one-nighter in Michigan. I just did it in a bunch of different types of places, and then and I was editing it, and my dad, and I hadn't like decided to put it up or not put it up. I was just trying to edit it, and then my dad was like visiting. I was like, Dad, what do you think of this? And I played him, and he was like, look, I'm gonna be honest. I support you, but this is garbage. Like,
that's a good dad.
He was like, this is just not interesting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you'd have to go through like, what if like a heckler video, but from that angle might be interesting. But then you're like, if it's just you enjoy, I don't know. Or
the other thing is, I think one of the things I was like, this could work is if you had a front camera and this camera and you split the screen, and so you're seeing, you see what the comic is doing on stage, but then also see how that looks from their perspective.
I see. Okay.
That could actually maybe work.
Yeah, it would just be dependent on what the footage you're getting. If it's just a normal show, good audience, you film your special like that, it's like, well, they're just laughing and having a good time. But if it is like those nights where you're like, that guy's clearly hammered, that dude passed out in his chair, like that might be more of
something more memorable
or something. Yeah, but I appreciate that your dad was like, yeah, let's not do that. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably that might be the only idea that my dad has ever said that to me, because my dad is thankfully like really supportive. Like he lives in like St. Louis, and like one time I was in a comedy competition in Indianapolis and I made the finals, and he drove from St. Louis to watch me do like 10 minutes in the finals, and then drove back to St. Louis that night, which is like 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's funny because, I mean, you were an athlete, and my mom treats my stand-up very similarly, I think because she's used to basketball. It was a different team every time. I got to go to every game. And so when I first started, there was this like, Wednesday night, I'm so sorry I can't come to your show. I just have to work tomorrow. And I'm like, it's an open mic. You don't like, I don't want you here anyways, It's not. So that's funny. So he's like, I'm just going to support you no matter what. But then this was finally the one where he's like,
this was the one idea too far where he was like, look, I can't get behind this. Like, in no scenario, and do I support this aspect?
And it's funny because I kind of want to see it just to see what that footage, especially the angle of like it being on the top of your head, what that would look like. Just in case. But there's been every type of idea of like, I'll do a VR special and all this stuff, and it's like, that's not that far off of like, what if I film a special from my perspective only?
Yeah, totally.
All right. Do you think that's a good idea? If we get enough yeses or enough thumbs ups or whatever, then Grant has to put up 2 minutes of this.
I have to release this
video.
You
have to release 2 minutes. But in the comments, what do you think? Okay, so we got some bad sketch ideas, which didn't even make it to the light of day, really. And this
didn't make it
GoPro.
either.
I feel like the people who invented GoPro were like, this is not what we wanted it used
for. Totally.
This is not. All right.
I will say I am glad that I have enough self-awareness to be like, I'm not putting this out.
Yes, no, I agree. And I feel like talking through all of these things, you were like, made the choice that was the important choice in these ideas is to not go through with it, and
which is like super hard for a creative person when you've like invested energy and time into something to just acknowledge like, maybe this isn't the representation of myself that I want out there for the public. It's hard to make that choice.
I mean, in 10 shows, like that's a lot of like, if I bought a new camera, which I would love to do, and was just like, I'm gonna film stuff for this whole weekend, 5-6 shows, and hopefully there's like something, a good clip, and then nothing, I'd be like, well, fuck, that was a real waste of time. Yeah. So that, oh man, that's great. It's the thing with dumb pitches. If you're self-aware while you're pitching it, does it end up like they're like, well, maybe we'll give him a shot just because he knows it's bad? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So those were great. I'm excited to see the comments. But where can people find your good ideas? Where can they find you? Website, social media, whatever you want to tell them about.
My website is just grantlyon.com. My last name is Lyon. And my social media is Grant Lyon 1 because somebody took my name first. So on like Instagram and Twitter and that sort of stuff. As Monica mentioned, I had an album that came out last year that actually hit number 1 on the comedy charts. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of that I've ever created. You know, it's a lot of years of work into this hour. It's literally available everywhere you listen to music, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, all that sort of stuff. So it's called Scheduled Fun Time. And then my board game, Curmudgeon, is available. I mean, if you put in Curmudgeon game into the old Google machine, you'll find all these different places to get it.
There you go. Support his good ideas. We'll see, again, if there's enough comments. I do want to see some of this GoPro footage. But thank you for being here. Such a great episode. Again, shout out to our small business sponsor, Bebop Waffle Shop. And, of course, as always, the Third Wheel Podcast Studio here in Seattle. Do you want to make a podcast? You can do it here or in Los Angeles with these guys, and it'll look amazing and sound amazing. This has been so much fun. Thank you again, Grant. And keep watching Dumb Pitches.
You're weird.
Yes.